But I was not a very happy Chargers fan on Sunday, Leo, because the Chargers fell to the Steelers, suffering their first loss of the season. And with this loss came much more than a loss. We're going to talk about the Chargers and how they probably just dodged like 5 bullets, Matrix style, with some of these injuries. But did you catch the game, or at least the highlights? Look into this and tell me what you think about the Chargers-Steelers game. 2 teams that came into this undefeated, looking to kind of surprise everyone in their divisions.
Yeah, man. For starters, I didn't think Justin Herbert should have played in this game. Clearly, he was not 100%, and he probably would have served the team better if he didn't play. And I'm a Herbert guy. I like Herbert, but...
Hey, sorry for interrupting myself, but one quick reminder before you forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you can be here every single time I post. It's the free way you guys can support the channel. We're trying to build something special here very early on in the stages here. We only have 10,000 subscribers. We're trying to get 20,000 subscribers. The only way that's possible is if you guys support the channel by liking the video, subscribing, turn on notifications.
But him hopping on, one leg, obviously had that injury in training camp, and to see him in a walking boot and being questionable for a more important game coming up against the Kansas City Chiefs, you probably would have wanted to sit him against the Steelers. I did see a little bit of the highlights of the game. I have no interest in watching Steelers football. They to 1999. For me, it's not 1999 anymore. Clearly, it's not. I don't think their formula is, sustainable for long term. I think it's just, okay, we'll do the bare minimum, get some W's in the column, come playoff time, they would be obliterated by Buffalo, Kansas City. I don't need to talk about them. But for the Chargers, I think when you got a guy like Jim Harbaugh, the expectation was that it wasn't going to be a quick fix. But then again, it's hope because it's Jim Harbaugh and we respect his resume, right? But unfortunately, injuries are stockpiling to the point where even Jim Harbaugh can't coach injuries, okay? We get to that point in the situation right now, but it's good to see Quentin Johnson, having a couple touchdowns like he did on Sunday, and last week he had a touchdown as well. That's a hopeful sign because you desperately need him to take another leap. And Loud McConkey, I like that kid as well. I would like to see him involved a little bit more. But Justin Herbert shouldn't have played. He did. It's unfortunate. The Steelers won. And I think the Chargers, they got questions that they need to answer in regards to the health of their quarterback looking ahead to Kansas City next week.
I agree with that. And, I agree with most of that. I personally was okay with Herbert playing because of the reasons that Harbaugh gave and was talking about in the pregame leading up to it, which I'll talk about. But I will say my opinion on this upcoming game is completely different than my opinion going into that Steelers game. And you're probably thinking it's because I saw him get hurt in the Steelers game. But there's also more to it than just that. For one, I feel like in this first half, they did such a great job at keeping Herbert clean. He didn't take any hits. Every single play call was a quick pass if he did have to throw it. And if he was going to roll out, it was off of 3 or 4 straight runs, like where the play action was going to be good. And at the end of the second half, a lot of people probably didn't catch it because they're watching their own games and stuff. But this passing offense was heating up. All of McConkey's catches in this game and his stat line from this, which was 4 catches or so, were from a drive right before half. So the Chargers were just marching on the Steelers secondary unconsciously, even with Herbert injured. Then Rashawn Slater gets hurt. Joe Alt starts to struggle with TJ Watt, who he played very good against for about 3.5 quarters. And it's going to start to break down. I mean, it's TJ freaking Watt. Those 2 things start to happen. Herbert gets hurt after a Slater pec injury that puts the backup tackle in, who gives up a play like on the second play in the game that gets Herbert whacked by these Steelers guys. And I feel like they should have had Herbert in this game because of what Herbert was saying before. How can I pull the leash back on my warrior? And I understand that it's an ankle injury. It's very scary, but they had a very short leash on him. He was limping one time. He took 1 hit in this game, Leo, and that 1 hit took him out of the game. So they were super cautious with it. They weren't pushing it too hard. They weren't calling QB draw. They weren't using him the way they would use him normally if he was fully healthy. And most importantly of it all, it was working. And I think we're having a much different conversation right now if he stays healthy in that game, because the Chargers had ran the ball. Not a lot of success, but it was opening up the passing game, and the Steelers were either going to have to back off and defend the pass, or Herbert was going to go for another 150 in the second half, maybe 175 at 2 or 3 touchdowns. So it's tough that it happened in the third quarter when the Chargers offense was heating up. And it brings me to this upcoming game against the Chiefs. Slater's not going to play in this one. Joe Alt's not going to play in this one. The Chargers are probably down Josh Palmer, their wide receiver one, their safety blanket, their guy that they go to when that blitz is coming downhill and Herbert identifies it and says, hot, hot, hot. We got to go to Palmer right now. He's not going to be out there probably this week without both tackles. Yeah, I see why. The strategy would be, let's protect the warrior from the warrior a little bit more than the previous week where the tackle's been playing great. The quarterback was very confident in himself, and the leash was as short as I've ever seen it. Like, I've never seen Herbert yanked from a game like that. What do you think about this upcoming game? I don't think the Chargers are going to play Herbert in this upcoming game because Joe Alt is almost for sure out. Rashawn Slater is extremely questionable. We're talking about 2 backup tackles against, a very game Chiefs D-line.
Yeah, you don't want to put Herbert out there, in that situation with your missing offensive lineman, especially going up against Chris Jones, who we all know can wreck a game. And what Steve Spagnuolo could do as a defensive coordinator doesn't get talked about enough. His impact on the Chiefs dynasty and where they are, him being able to disguise blitzes at the line of scrimmage and know, how to mix things up to confuse the quarterback. I always tell people, when we want to separate quarterbacks and be like, oh, okay, it's Mahomes going up against Lamar. It's Mahomes going up against Josh Allen. Yeah, kind of, Captain Obvious. But no, it's Josh Allen going up against Steve Spagnuolo. It's Lamar Jackson going up against Steve Spagnuolo. He is a different animal. So you combine that with the beast they have up front, led by Chris Jones, and the missing offensive lineman, and couple that with him being hurt. You don't want to throw him out there in that situation, even though it's tempting. That's the only pathway to beat the Chiefs, with Patrick Mahomes is playing Justin Herbert. So by you setting him out, it's basically kind of like booking an L, especially with all the calls the Chiefs be getting. Okay, don't even get me started over there. So it's a tough pill to swallow, which is why I would have preferred to see him sit out, on Sunday compared to the game against Mahomes. I'd have been looking forward to that.
Me too. And I might have went to the game if that was the case. With Herbert out, I'm probably definitely not going to the game. And it's even you flip it to the other side of the ball. Derwin James obviously getting suspended, which we'll talk about here in a second. Joey Bosa is banged up. He's probably taking a week off. And looking forward, who the Chargers play next week, Lil, after the Chiefs?
They play next.
Nobody. They have a bye week, so you can give basically all your star players a double bye week.
2 weeks. Yep.
And go into it after week 5 at 2-2 still. Not even that bad of a record with the team that looked really good for those first 2 games. An offense that looked borderline unstoppable on the ground for those first 2 games. And again, I talked about it with the Raiders. Can't emphasize it enough. First year of Jim Harbaugh, getting those youngsters out there, giving them a chance to kind of prove themselves here in a random regular season game in week 4. It isn't necessarily a terrible thing. We will have a veteran quarterback that's pulled off some crazy freaking upsets in his career. Tyler Heineke out there. Like, let's roll the dice. Let's get these guys a big game while the rest of our guys get healthy and unsuspended, which I want to touch on because we're running out of time here already. And I want to talk about this. I know my Chargers fans out there want to hear our reaction. I'll give you my take, but what do you think about Derwin James being suspended for kind of making a routine tackle over the middle of the field this weekend?
I mean, look, you look at Derwin James' track record. He has 5 unnecessary roughness penalties in the last 18 games, the most in the league by a defensive player. I always said that this guy reminds me of an NBA player named Draymond Green, who, knows how to walk the thin line, but sometimes crosses the line when it comes to, the rules. Like, for example, Draymond Green is a guy that reminds me of somebody who preferred to play the game in the 90s where physicality existed. And I can say the same thing about Derwin James. He wishes he played in an era where it wasn't so offensive minded and protected, but the defense could hit, a quarterback. The defense could hit a wide receiver and not get flagged for that. Obviously, you got to adapt with the times. But that's not the conversation I want to have right now. The real elephant in the room is how they are protecting Patrick Mahomes again, Queen Mahomes. Okay? Because that's what it is. A lot of people want to put 2 and 2 together and get 4. I will. Okay? The Chiefs has been getting bailed out by the NFL and the referees the last couple of weeks. And people have to peep game here. Okay? A lot of people talk about the Cowboys being America's team, and they probably still is America's team, right? But the Chiefs are the NFL's cash cow. Okay, there's a reason why they put them on Peacock in the playoff game because of Taylor Swift and simping to Taylor Swift. Okay, that was a business play. Clearly, the NFL has interest in the Chiefs three-peating this year, and clearly the referees have interest as well. And the fact that they suspend this guy for a routine tackle ahead of the Chiefs lets me know that they are trying to protect Queen Mahomes once more, like they always do with the calls. You can't hit him out of bounds. Flag. Okay, you can't breathe in this guy's face. Flag. You can't look his way. Flag. Come on.
Yeah, and I have a Chiefs fan coming on this episode as well, so we're definitely going to talk about this. But it is very suspicious. Who's been struggling? What's been the big offensive problems for the Chiefs? They can't get the tight end going? Okay, let's take out the tight end kryptonite. Exactly. The only guy, and for fairsies, to be honest, hasn't really slowed down Travis Kelce either. But the only guy that stood in his face and literally picked him up and slammed him before is up to the challenge to go against a struggling Kelce right now.
Let's not embarrass him in front of his girl. In the press box.
You take Derwin out now, and I think there's a good chance that Kelce has his first big game. Although the Chargers defense is ranked second in the league right now, only behind Pittsburgh. They're playing phenomenal football with a hobbled Joey Bosa. Khalil Mack he's just legendary. And this guy's just going to be able to do this because his style of play, it doesn't really tie into the athleticism the way it did younger in his career. It's more technique. It's more finesseful and powerful. It's very fun to watch. Like, the Chargers are going to put up a fight in this game against the Chiefs, even with their backups, I feel like. But yeah, this is almost like a nail in our coffin of Derwin James getting suspended. And I see what you're saying with the roughness penalties piling up over time. The NFL has been targeting Derwin James and been telling refs to watch him for quite some time now. We have seen some calls that make sense. He has hit a guy very hard in a heated moment of a game that might have deserved a penalty. But there's also been multiple now that are on his record that the NFL is using to suspend him that were very minor, that it's clear that he is on a list of players that referees are specifically watching each week. I've been saying this since 2022, Leal, that Derwin James will probably eventually be suspended at some point in his career because I already had seen the way it had been going with the flags and how they're building a case against my guy, and that case was being built years ago, and here it is. They get the chance to finally pull it. Yeah, they finally get a chance to pull it out of the hat the week that he's playing the Chiefs. Thank you for tuning in to another NFLMike video. Now it's time to go make more football friends or go and compete in the Mike's Pickems Challenge or against me in daily fantasy football challenges by joining my completely free NFL group chat. Or head to fifthdown.shop and check out and see if we got your team's newest designs. Or now you can simply rep your favorite players without having to wear another team's gear. And then tag us in pictures of you wearing your Fifth Down merch for a shout out in the next episode of NFL Mike's Corner. And help us reach our goal of getting 1,000 NFL fans wearing Fifth Down. Or you can head to the next NFL Mike video by clicking it. It's on your screen. Go ahead.